Okay, let's dive right into this explainer. Today, we're looking at why the tech world is quietly but very seriously preparing for the end of the traditional smartphone era. We are literally standing on the edge of a massive shift in consumer electronics, and it's being driven entirely by artificial intelligence. Think about the device you're probably using right now. Sure, it's incredibly powerful, but ask yourself, is this very device actually holding back the true potential of AI? Because as you'll see, the current app model we all rely on is suddenly looking, well, incredibly outdated. Here's our roadmap for today. We're going to cover being trapped behind Apple's walls, designing the anti-iPhone, China's radical AI phone, and finally, the big AGI goalpost shift. All right, section 1, trapped behind Apple's walls. Let's get into the core problem here. ChatGPT is getting ridiculously smart, right? But currently, it's really just another app stuck playing by someone else's rules on a locked screen. And this friction is a huge bottleneck. Right now, our smartphones are basically just a shelf of isolated icons. If you want to order food, check your schedule, or pay a bill, you are doing all the manual labor. You're constantly jumping between these sandboxed apps with their strict permission walls. But imagine a true AI agent vision. In that model, you just tell the phone what you want to achieve, and the AI agent uses deep, system-level context about your life to connect the tools automatically. It completely flips the logic of how we use our devices. It's pretty fascinating how OpenAI CEO Sam Altman views the devices in our pockets. He actually compares smartphones to Times Square, a place of constant information bombardment and completely fragmented attention. He contrasts that with a calmer, agent-driven hardware future. He calls it a lakeside cottage, a place where you can just close the door and actually focus. But here's the catch. To build that cottage, they have to control the device itself. Which brings us to Section 2, designing the anti-iPhone. This is exactly where that theoretical problem turns into a massive, highly secretive hardware push from OpenAI. So, to build this so-called anti-iPhone, OpenAI went straight to the source. They initiated an absolute talent grab. They've assembled a 200-person hardware team packed with top-tier Apple DNA. We're talking about love from the design studio led by former Apple design chief Johnny Ive, alongside heavy-hitter veterans like Tang Tan and Evans Hankey. Just to put this in perspective, OpenAI hired more than 20 hardware experts from Apple last year alone. And according to the source material, this actually terrified Apple enough that they allegedly canceled an annual closed-door meeting in China. But it's not just about the talent. It's about the supply chain. An industry survey from analyst Ming-Chi Kuo reveals that OpenAI is literally tapping into Apple's own supply chain. They're working with MediaTek and Qualcomm on mobile processors that are fundamentally optimized for power management and local edge-side AI reasoning. They're partnering with Luxshare Precision, a company with deep Apple supply chain experience that's eager to surpass Foxconn, for exclusive co-design and assembly. And Gertech is even in talks for speaker modules. So we're not just talking about slapping a chatbot onto a normal phone. The processor itself is being built from the ground up for agentic behavior. Now, you might be wondering, why go through all this trouble? Well, the global high-end mobile phone market is roughly 300 to 400 million units per year. That's massive. While selling a single high-end enterprise AI chip might bring in more money per unit, the sheer mind-boggling scale of the mobile phone market is just too big to ignore. Capturing even a tiny fraction of that creates a massive new business line for OpenAI. The revenue scale of everyday consumer hardware just vastly outweighs selling individual chips. Let's walk through this leaked hardware roadmap, which really proves this is highly coordinated supply chain planning, not just a pipe dream. The rollout is expected to kick off with a smart speaker around February 2027, priced somewhere between $200 to $300. Following that, later in 2027, we can expect AI headphones powered by a 2-nanometer chip, featuring a really unique metal cobblestone design. And then, 2028 is when things get incredibly ambitious, with mass production expected for both smart glasses and that highly anticipated AI phone. Okay, Section 3, China's radical AI phone. Because while OpenAI is taking the slow, ground-up route, China's already running a wild, live experiment with this right now. Just look at the sheer demand for an AI-first device over there. Late last year, ByteDance worked with ZTE to launch the first-generation Daobao phone. And get this, the engineering prototypes sold out instantly. It was originally priced around $480, but the resale value skyrocketed on the secondary market to roughly $5,000 at one point. The frenzy was so intense, it actually sent ZTE's stock hitting its daily limit. People absolutely want this technology, and they want it yesterday. So how did they pull it off so fast? They used what's called a GUI agent. Instead of waiting for every single app developer to create perfect backend connections for the AI, this super aggressive approach just visually reads the screen and simulates human manual actions. It basically hacks the user interface. That means the AI can immediately book flights, compare prices, or send a polished WeChat reply by operating the phone exactly like you or I would. It completely bypasses the need for official developer APIs. So we're really looking at two totally distinct philosophies for escaping the app sandbox. On one hand, you have OpenAI's path. This is the slow route, building a brand new device, an entirely new operating system, and custom processors completely from scratch. On the other hand, you have ByteDance's path, the aggressive route, transforming existing Android phones from the inside out using a GUI agent. And top domestic manufacturers in China, like Honor and Vivo, are already eyeing this aggressive route for a massive coming wave of AI OS devices. But as you can probably guess, there is a massive downside to this aggressive approach. Because the GUI agent basically punches a giant hole right through normal app permissions by imitating a human, it creates an absolute nightmare for security. Major platforms over there, WeChat, Alipay, Tabo, and several banking apps, reportedly started blocking the Daobao phone outright for security and compatibility reasons. Turns out, when an AI can just bypass normal security boundaries, the financial and payment systems get very, very nervous. Understandably so. Which leads us to Section 4, the AGI goalpost shift. Let's zoom out from the specific hardware for a second and look at the overarching philosophy driving all of this, and of course, the shifting timelines for artificial general intelligence. We really have to point out the deep irony of our current AI moment. On one hand, Sam Altman posts that after AGI arrives, no one is going to work and the economy is basically going to collapse. Yet, on the other hand, he's publicly stating he is adopting polyphasic sleep, literally sleeping in tiny little bursts, just so he can work even more hours alongside tools like GPT 5.5 and Codex. I mean, think about that. The creator of the technology that is meant to end human labor simply cannot afford to stop working himself. And despite Altman's previous target of AGI arriving by 2030, a lot of top leaders think the rigid idea of one giant magical AGI breakthrough is fundamentally flawed. Anthropic's Daniela Amodi point-blank calls the very concept of AGI outdated. Google DeepMind CEO Demis Hassabis argues true AGI cannot be achieved without world models, and Peter Steinberger suggests the entire industry should really be focusing on specialized intelligence rather than general intelligence. And this brings us to a massive yet very quiet shift in OpenAI's own operating principles. Back in their 2018 charter, AGI was mentioned 12 times. They actually promised to stop competing and help out if another safety-focused lab got close to AGI first. But look at the newly updated 2026 charter. AGI is only mentioned twice, and that non-compete clause, completely gone. They removed it to trade off some empowerment for more resilience. This pretty clearly proves the company is preparing for a much more competitive long-term grind, rather than suddenly crossing a magical finish line. Their new principles state this shift very clearly. The world needs to grapple with each successive level of AI capability. This narrative change is huge. It moves us away from waiting for a single AGI moment to an iterative deployment reality. It basically means society is going to have to adapt step by step as these increasingly stronger AI systems and the wild new hardware that carries them arrive in our daily lives. Which leaves us with this final provocative thought. As we brace for this entirely new wave of AI phones and smart glasses meant to do all our thinking for us, we really have to ask, if AGI is going to end work, why is its creator working harder than ever? I encourage you to question what the arrival of these new intelligent devices will actually mean for our daily routines, our privacy, and our own ability to focus. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I will see you in the next one.